Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, our special guests, Senator Gerald Dial and Mayor Rick Pate. Also, the V-Team takes a look at a need for second chances. And Attorney General Steve Marshall, he's a sellout.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart and I want respect.
Smart, like Fredo smart. Like sell out your friends, your family, anybody. Just give me a little something. Yes, Steve, that's the kind of smart you are. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hello.
Glad to be here.
Jack, you both have kind of Auburn-y ties today.
Oh, well, it wasn't by design, let me assure you.
Mine's red. Am I colorblind?
Is that red?
Yeah.
That's
red.
orange.
That's orange.
That's orange.
Whoops.
Oh, well. Everybody looks healthy and happy today. I'm glad to see that.
The cold weather's finally gone.
Yeah, spring
We
has
can put in
sprung,
a garden now
Yes, it
again.
has.
Yes,
Bill.
it has. One of the stories we reported this week is the deterioration of the Special Prosecution Unit of the Attorney General's Office, an elite team led by Matt Hart. At their height, they had over 15 folks in that office that were doing investigation and prosecution. They're the team that took down Mike Hubbard. They're the team that took out Robert Bentley. They have done a tremendous job in fighting white collar and public corruption. Chip, they are now down to 9 folks, and it's dwindling. And part of that's because Steve Marshall not allowing them to replace staff, according to our sources within the department.
Yeah, and
not the department, but inside the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, and you reported that this week that he's not approving the funding for them to hire more investigators and to replace the people that are leaving. So he's letting the division fall apart through attrition. And like you said, that's the elite unit, the public corruption unit that we have to go after these people who are corrupt and doing things that they're not supposed to do. And if you don't have a team that's set aside specifically to do that, you can't have just general prosecutors going after that stuff. They have too much other things.
No, I mean, and Susan, this is the thing. District attorneys can do a lot, but district attorneys, generally speaking, cannot prosecute white-collar crime, especially at these high levels.
And they don't want to.
They don't want to, and they don't have the resources to do it. They're already overloaded. Now, from what I can see, Marshall, in this instance, is holding out keeping 2 promises. One to Robert Bentley to go after this unit, for going after him and Becca and all of them. And also from what we understand, when Marshall first got into office, a lot of the donations he was promised was based on what are you going to do with Matt Hart.
Yeah.
And I think this is his way of fulfilling those 2 promises, is to let this go into attrition, let the state go to whatever state it's going to go, and
Yeah,
let this.
Chip, you had something?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, is when you go after these powerful people who are doing these corrupt things, you get blacklisted, and there's a lot of people that don't like you, and there's a lot of powerful people that don't like this unit, and that's what they're trying to do, is pressure Marshall to not keep this unit up to its full potential.
Well, Jack, we know for a fact that Mike Duffy, one of the shining stars of that division, is leaving for the U.S. Attorney's office in Nebraska.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I mean, he
What a shame.
At the Hubbard trial, I mean, he took everybody through the paces of Mike Hubbard's crimes so that it was just so obvious.
He's a smart and talented guy and has a lot of institutional knowledge, even though he's not that old, but he's brilliant, and to lose him is a big deal. But if I were working over there, I'd probably be looking for something else.
Well,
too, if I were in that division, because it seems, like Susan said, contributions to Steve Marshall come with a price tag.
Yeah.
And that price tag is, if I give you this money, you're going to shut these people down.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate.
And Jack, you brought up something earlier. We were talking off air where Billy Canary and BCA has made it abundantly clear that they are going to fund Steve Marshall come hell or high water.
Yeah. In fact, I heard a candidate who was going over there to ask for their support was told, we're going to support Steve Marshall. We're pulling no punches.
Yeah.
We're going to give whatever it takes.
I mean, Susan, why in the world should the Business Council of Alabama care about who is Attorney General?
Well, you know that HB 317 that just got through that had to kind of do with principles and stuff like that? This is kind of the way that the BCA can hopefully control some of the things that are going on in the state.
I mean, Chip, if you're doing the right thing, should you really care who the Attorney General is?
No, you shouldn't. I mean, you really shouldn't. There's two things that the AG can do for you if you're in business. Either A, not prosecute you, or B, push legislation that's favorable for you. Because the AG does have a degree of say in the State House, and that's what we saw with HB 317. That bill was not looking good until Steve Marshall got behind it. And so those are the kind of things that when people are donating to Steve Marshall, that they're hoping to get.
And he completely rewrote the original version of that bill, which was far more strident and strict than what they passed.
But swore that it was Matt Hart's writing. The whole
Yeah,
time.
well, it wasn't.
We
It
know
was
That's the other
not-
thing is we've
wasn't
talked
out of
about
that division.
We've talked about Matt Hart being over that division. I mean, this is not the first time he's muzzled Matt Hart.
Right.
You had lawmakers trying to get in touch with Matt Hart to talk to him about HB 317, and he said that Steve Marshall had pretty much said that Steve Marshall had.
From our understanding, the morale is so low in that division. They've lost some 4 to 6 investigators. They've lost 4 attorneys, and it's not because they don't love working for Matt Hart. It's because they can't stand working for Steve Marshall, and they don't know where things are going.
Well,
Jack.
he's probably, there's that cloud of uncertainty. I don't think he's verbally said you're going to be gone, but the implication is there.
Can you imagine the frustration of being a prosecutor and being sent to the sidelines to sit and shut up?
Yeah.
Well,
I can't imagine.
one of the worst things we've heard is that he's refused to prosecute people who are donors or potential donors. And this is coming from people who have left the office that don't have an axe to grind. They are just concerned about the future of our state. Chip, we've only got about a minute left. There was a big approval with the Public Service Commission, Twinkle Kavanaugh, Jeremy Oden, and the others approved a $337 million rate cut over the next 2 years. That's a pretty big deal for some working families.
Yeah, you know, and they said it was because of President Trump's tax cut plan. And it's going to be about $9 a year for
$9
people.
a month?
$9 a month, sorry. 120 is right over the year for people on their power bills. And so we were talking about this earlier. 120 doesn't seem like a lot, but when it comes to Christmas time, that could be kids' gifts. That could be a lot.
Right, for a lot of working families, that's a good chunk of money.
And a rate cut is always better than a rate increase.
Yeah, Jack, this
Especially when
would
you've got
give George
healthcare
Wallace a
rises.
heart attack.
No, it wouldn't. No, anytime Alabama Power gives money back, Wallace would have loved
I
it.
know, but he'd had nothing to run on.
Yeah, absolutely. The big mules.
Well, congratulations to the working families.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. I know it's automatic that when they reach a
Yeah.
certain profit point, but that's great. Rarely do you see a refund.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with our special guests, Senator Gerald Dial and Mayor Rick Pate, who wants your vote for Agriculture and Industry Commissioner.
The Energy Institute of Alabama promotes reliable, affordable, and clean energy to help grow our economy, create high-paying jobs, and build public support for Alabama's energy industry. Access to clean, affordable energy continues to be an issue of vital importance in the halls of government and around the kitchen tables across our nation. The Energy Institute of Alabama is the best source of energy industry information and how it affects households across the state, from convenient energy production to alternative fuels to solar power and beyond.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our special guests today are Senator Gerald Dial and Mayor Rick Pate. Both of them want your vote for Agriculture and Industry Commissioner. Mayor Pate, I would like to go to you on this one. Alabama has a fairly significant export of our chickens and poultry, of course, and there's an idea here that we need to expand the port of Mobile. We need to do more export. Do you have any ideas on how we would do that, how you'd work with the port of Mobile, with the federal government and such, to expand our export industry? I know there's some there's some avenues there we haven't explored. Have you thought about how we would get to that?
Well, of course, that's a great point, what you started out saying, and not just Alabama, but American agriculture is one of our real success stories that really helps with the trade imbalance. And so, yeah, we definitely need to expand what we're producing. There's tremendous markets. I think there was a UN report saying that we need to double food production by 2050 to feed the world. There's a demand for protein. We could meet that demand in Alabama and America if, a lot of times it's politicians and government that create the barriers. If in an open, free-flowing society, we certainly can meet the demands. And yeah, I know I've got good friends. Guy Horace Horn came to my high school graduation. I've known all my life, and I think he's on that authority down there, and there's been some discussions about what we need to do down there. But yeah, we'll get into more specifics about that.
Okay. Senator Dial, same question.
Well, great, and you're absolutely right. Exports are extremely important in agriculture. As I've said before, at one time we exported more chicken to Cuba than anybody, and now Arkansas is doing that. And Arkansas is doing it simply because they opened an office in Cuba, and they put a person on the ground to create those personal relationships. Cuba's government's changing. Cuba has just licensed 150 new private restaurants. Used to it was communism, you couldn't own a restaurant. Now they're going to have 150 new private owned and operated restaurants. We can replace Arkansas by Alabama poultry. That Arkansas poultry, fortunately, comes to Mobile and goes out our port, but they're killing us in the fact that they're on the ground doing that. So I've talked to Horace Horn, who's also a good friend of mine, and Horace is president of the Dock Association. He's agreed that if I'm elected, that he and I go together and jointly fund that person on the ground to promote our product. And it's not just poultry. They grow no pine trees in Cuba or anywhere in the Caribbean. The reason they hadn't gotten power back in Puerto Rico is they don't have any power poles because they don't grow any pine trees. We have to ship them down there. One of the major things, though, that's facing us and the new super cargo ship that the Panama Canal has just been expanded so they can take these super tankers. I'm talking about tankers bigger 10 times in this building that carry all those cargoes. Those come through the Panama Canal. And now Cuba's opened a port where they're going to take those ships in and offload them into smaller ships and send them to Mobile and send them to Houston and send them to New Orleans. What we need in Alabama, and what I think that you'll see coming from our congressional delegation, is the authority to make that a deep water port. If we could become a deep water port in Mobile, Alabama, it would dynamically change the whole economic concept of what Alabama is. We would become the deep water port in the whole Gulf region. Then all those super containers could come to Alabama, and then we could ship them to Houston, and we could ship them all over. So I think you'll see our congressional delegation working on that. There's going to be a deep water port in the Gulf region. It should be Alabama.
I know Senator Shelby was just down in that area promoting that idea. One of the things was, can we get the money? Yeah. One of the important things for agriculture, Mayor Pate, is moving that cargo. President Trump has said that he would support, he's looking to grow our infrastructure throughout the United States. Here at home, there's a push to promote, to promote infrastructure growth in our state with our bridges, our roads that we need to move cargo, to move produce and all that. Do you have any thoughts about how we should go about funding an infrastructure project, and are you in favor of expanding the infrastructure in Alabama?
Well, I think, yeah, you want to make sure we have sufficient infrastructure. I mean, business, I was actually meeting with a guy with the Truckers Association. And so after we talked for a few minutes, he said, I support you. You seem like a great guy. I want to be for you, but why should I care about the Commission of Agriculture? And so it almost made me laugh. I said, if you care about commerce, you care about moving product in the state of Alabama, like Senator Dow said, agriculture and forestry and related industries is the largest industry in the state of Alabama. Yeah, we got to have this infrastructure to move that stuff around. Or, yeah, I hadn't taken a position about, because I'm not part of the system enough to know what shape our infrastructure's in and where the improvements need to be, but certainly whatever role the Department of Agriculture would take in that, I'd be interested in.
Senator Dow, same question.
Well, I think it's pretty well known of my position on infrastructure improvement. I did around the state hearings with Speaker Mac McCutcheon. Last year, we went to all the areas looking and listening to the needs. The infrastructure in this state is in a deplorable position. We have 400 bridges today that school buses pass that are unsafe. We're going to have to do something about infrastructure, and we can't wait on the federal government. Unfortunately, we're going to have to look at some kind of revenue increase to make that work. But we don't have toll roads in Alabama, but we toll it at the pump. If you don't drive, you don't pay the gas tax. If you ride a bicycle, you don't have to worry about what gas tax. But if you use the roads and deteriorate the road, you're going to have to refund some funding into it. The first issue that this next legislature will pass will be an infrastructure program to fix the roads and bridges in Alabama so we can continue to do the commerce and continue to traveling. You can't get the rural agricultural products to the market if you don't have adequate structure for them to travel over. When you're going to cut logs in a remote area and you got to go 20 miles out of the way because it's a bad bridge and you can't cross it, then it just adds to the cost. So yes, infrastructure must be addressed, and it must be addressed immediately. And this legislature, incoming legislature in the next session, or if the governor decides to call a special session in the spring, you'll see an infrastructure bill passed that will be fair. But the one thing we've got to be certain about that infrastructure bill, that it addresses the rural roads in this state and the rural bridges as well as the metropolitan areas.
Well, I wish both of you the best of luck. We've run out of time. We're going to, again, wish you both the best of luck and thank you for your service to the state and your willingness to stand up for the people of Alabama. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Bill.
You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our special guests today have been Mayor Rick Pate and Senator Gerald Dial. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Hey, I'm Rick.
And I'm Bubba from the Rick and Bubba Show. And if you know anything about us, you know we like to have fun.
However, there's one thing that's no laughing matter. We believe that everyone should be registered to vote, and they should have a qualified government-issued photo ID.
In order to have your voice heard and your vote counted, you must be registered to vote and have a photo ID.
Join Bubba and me and register to vote, and let's work together to make Alabama all it can be.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Chip, the Big Seven, some of the most powerful companies in Alabama, Alabama Power, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Thompson Tractor, AT&T, have all come out and said it was time for Billy Canary to step down as head of BCA, but he continues to kick back. Perry Hand, the chairman, the current chairman, wants to keep him on through the election. One of the things that he is doing is, we understand when people come in and ask for BCA money, he is saying, are you going to support the gas tax for the infrastructure plan? A lot of people want to see this infrastructure package happen. Good for the state. Everybody agrees. How we get there is another matter. And now there are people saying that Canary's unfavorables are harming the possibilities of getting that infrastructure deal passed.
Yeah, I mean, people are worried that Billy Canary is the touch of death on this thing. I mean, there's a lot of people in the State House who aren't very fond of him right now, and that's where that gas tax would have to go through. And we've heard that he's obsessed with getting this gas tax through. There are a lot of people in the business community that want that gas tax because they want to reinvest in infrastructure. But it seems like he's obsessed with this, and he's making that, you know, you have to check off that box before you get that BCA money. And a lot of people, depending on who you talk to, need it, but that could be, you know, a touch of death that people don't want him on there.
Yeah, I mean, Susan, the guy has not got the very charming personality these days.
He's doing the same thing with the gas tax he did with autism. Basically, he's taking a baseball bat, going home and taking his little wood burning set and carving the word in the baseball bat and hitting people over the head with it. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. It didn't work with autism. It's not going to work with the gas bill. We need to not only have some sort of gas tax or whatever, we need to come with a package. And you can't just pinhole legislators into saying, okay, I'm going to tax first year in the quadrennium.
Yeah,
I think that's a bad move.
Well, but Jack, I mean, this thing, if President Trump comes down with the infrastructure plan that he has with the federal dollars, we're going to have to be ready. And I'm not against this, and I don't know many people that are against it, but there's alternative ways to funding this. We don't have to necessarily use the gas.
Here's my concern. I've taken a lot of candidates who I've consulted with to see trade associations, car dealers, and truckers and retail. Never have I ever heard any of those people say, "Well, now we'll give you a check, but you got to vote for." What they all say is, "Look, we want you to support our industry, but if you ever have a question, call us." But never has it been a contribution been tied to a specific vote. To me, that's pretty out there.
You know, Jack, one of the things it does, it reminds me of one of your favorite movies, and that's Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. What's that? Quid pro quo, Clary.
That's right.
And I have a bit of a theory here on this, Phil. If he gets, they want to keep him through the fall, right? So you keep him through the election. Let's say he gets his candidates that have promised that they will vote for the gas tax. Well, why not keep him through the session so that he can continue to push for the gas tax? And if now it's got to be implemented, so we just a little. And this is a pattern with Canary and BCA.
Well, he has 600,000 reasons to want to keep the job at BCA. That's what he gets paid every year.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
$600,000.
Yeah.
That's like real money, Jack.
No kidding.
And let's not forget to tie him back to Marshall with that $100,000 the day after session last year.
You would think if that many people in your own organization didn't want you there, you might think about hitting the road. But when somebody wheels in a big old wheelbarrow of dollars, you might want to stay.
Well, and his wife's over at RSA, and she's pulling down about $300,000 a year. I mean, that's almost $1 million for the family. In Alabama, that's real money.
They do have a nice house.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's a reason for that.
Rich could move out of the outhouse for that.
I do want to say, I mean, like you said, we're going to have to be prepared for this Trump infrastructure plan whenever it comes, if it comes, because it's going to there's going to be state matches, and you talked about that. So they need to be careful who they burn bridges with before we get there.
Well, honest people really do have a problem supporting Canary anymore, but he's stacked the board. We only got about 2.5 minutes left. Susan, we went to an event where the state has been given a grant where first responders throughout the state are going to be given this device that if you have an opioid overdose, that device will get you out of trouble.
This is a very exciting thing. It is very easy to use for first responders. Now, these are going to the volunteer fire departments, not city departments and all of that. This is a grant and a donation from a company called Calio. With this device, any first responder can walk into a situation with somebody with an opioid overdose and be able to administer this like an antidote, like you would an anti-venom for a snake bite, right? The other exciting thing is a lot of times you've got first responders walking into a situation, and because they're trying to resuscitate somebody that has some sort of illicit drug on their person, the first responder can actually contract whatever that is. But this will be available for them as well. This will go into over 800 cars for first responders and volunteer fire departments across the state, and it's a 4-year program.
It's a 4-year program.
Four-year
That's
program.
pretty good. You know, somebody tried to make a big deal out of this being like a bait and switch. Well, in 4 years, they've given you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, how far has this come in 4 years? Really,
yeah, right.
seriously.
So we'll see where it goes. You know, there's an incredible program, Jack, that Cam Ward is talking about. We have prisoners throughout the state. Right now, there's over 22,000 adults are in prison, and he's saying we have to provide programs to give them a second chance when they leave prison.
I think it's great. I know on our radio show there's a guy who calls named Inmate Roy, and he had just gotten out of the Hooskow for a crime he committed, which he said happened, and he was in jail or in prison for 23 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He got out and found work. He's doing great. He ministers for other people. I mean, you're right. You have to give these people a chance.
Well, what would be helpful is if the money that we actually allocate for the education to give these people trades and whatever when they get out actually gets to the programs.
Well, I have to say
that would be helpful.
It would be. Cam Ward has done more.
He has.
For prison reform, for justice reform, than just about anyone, probably anyone I can name in the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm. And very quiet.
Quietly, too.
Yeah, he gets no huge accolades. And I want to thank Cam Ward for all he's done for juvenile justice, for the justice system, and in this new venture, everyone needs a second chance. Don't you agree?
I agree.
All right. We're going to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us. We watch them.